I'm scared for America, y'all. What's up, everybody? It's your boy J-Rod. So we have some breaking news today that Donald Trump, he was sending out deportation flights to Colombia, and the Colombian president was basically blocking the flights. They were not accepting the flights. Now, it did actually come out later, actually rather quickly, okay? The Colombian president, he retracted his statement, and that's what we're going to kind of talk about for a second. But so essentially what happened is Donald Trump, he deported a bunch of immigrants from the United States over to Colombia, and they brought them over in a military plane unannounced, and pretty much the Colombian president was like, no, we're not going to go down for that. There's a certain order that we need to accept these people. And on top of that, not all the people on the plane were actually Colombian. So that was like kind of a big thing that people were talking about on the internet is, well, why wouldn't the Colombians accept their people? They were able to come over to America unannounced, then they should be able to receive them, you know, in that same manner. But that's the problem. Not everybody on the flight was Colombian. And then too, it was on like a cargo plane. So the way that they just brought them over here, it was just kind of like they were just like a bunch of animals essentially. And the Colombian president, he was big on like, no, I want dignity. I want you to treat people with humility. I will accept my people, but there has to be a certain way to do it. And pretty much that's where the block came into place. And Donald Trump was like, okay, well, if you don't accept your people, Trump said that he would put tariffs on imported goods out of Colombia from 25%. And then if nothing changes within a week, he'll move it up to 50%, which that's pretty bad. And let me explain why. And then along with a couple other things. Now, the reason why the tariffs are kind of a bad thing on both sides is because once he increases the tariffs on imported goods, that essentially means that everything we get imported from Colombia is going to be more expensive in America, which means the demand for these things are going to go down, which inadvertently will affect the Colombian people because, well, now people are going to be laid off because they're not going to have jobs, they're not going to have work. Okay, small farms and businesses, they're going to go out of business because everything's so damn expensive in America and nobody's buying it, or we're going to be using other supplements. So things such as coffee, textiles, flour, the prices of those things are going to rise dramatically. And that's kind of a bad thing in this economy right now because everything is already expensive, okay? And so on the Colombian side, that might start retaliation and rebellion. And one thing I can assure you about Colombians do not play when it comes to protesting, okay? I've seen it firsthand. You think America is bad with protests? The first time I went to Colombia, I think it was like 2021, okay? And I went to Cali, Colombia. And this was during COVID, so everything was expensive at that time because a lot of people were getting laid off of work. The government, they were raising up the prices for the Colombian people, and the people started to rebel. Initially, I only thought that it was in Medellin. I did not realize that it was in all of Colombia. So when I landed and touched down in Colombia, it looked like a battle zone, bro. When I tell y'all, it looked like something out of a dystopian end of the world movie. I'm talking about cars were on fire, exploding, people was in the streets breaking glass, shooting. It was just like, it was crazy. Like, I'd never seen anything like that. It was so bad that the military, I had to have military escort me into my hotel room. The military actually blocked off the main highway to the airport so people could not leave. Like, when I tell y'all, like, I've never seen anything like this. And still to this day, that was probably like one of the scariest trips I ever did. Okay, because of all the violence and chaos that was going on, like, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, aside from living in America, I mean, that's pretty normal in America, but coming into like another country and seeing that is kind of scary. Now, why is this a problem for Americans, or why did I say that I'm worried? Okay, now, first and foremost, before people leave a comment or say anything, I wholeheartedly agree that you just cannot show up to another person's country illegally and then expect the country to just have the resources to take on the people. I'm very torn on the immigration thing because on one side it's like, okay, we don't have the resources to take on so many people into the country. Then on the other side is like, well, if you get rid of everybody, then it's going to still mess up the economy either way because a lot of things that we depend on immigrants for, we're no longer going to have that. And so I feel like it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation. But I do agree that you can't just show up to somebody's house unannounced and then just expect them to just take on burdens of things that they can barely even do for their own people, you know. But the difference is, instead of Donald Trump taking these kids back to their parents' home, he's going to the neighbor's house across the street and just be like, here, deal with it. And the neighbors across the street are like, well, these ain't my kids either. So, you know, that's kind of like what the Colombian president is saying. But he did retract his statement and said that he is going to accept flights into Colombia of Colombian people and that he's going to do it on a presidential plane. It's not going to be on a military cargo plane, and he wants to treat his people with humility and dignity. Okay, so that's pretty much what his whole stance was. Now, why am I nervous for Americans who travel? It's not so much that I'm afraid for Americans that travel, but I do feel like in this political climate, you're now going to have to be a little bit more vigilant on the places that you choose to travel to, just because I feel like with this presidential election, I feel like my country in particular, we're going to become public enemy number one to a lot of countries. And so as a traveler, as an American traveler, we already don't get the best reputation. And this is just my experience of traveling around the world. I done been to so many different countries around the world. I've been to so many different continents. And one thing I can tell you is that Americans do not get the most, I would say, positive response every time we go places. I think a lot of people love America and what we have to offer and what we can provide. But when it comes down to Americans itself, I don't feel like we really get the best reputation. A lot of them think that we're obnoxious, entitled, and I think a lot of that could be misunderstandings with certain colloquialisms that we bring to countries or cultures, or just things that we do that might not be widely accepted in other countries. And unfortunately, it does have a negative impact on the travel experience. So somebody who might be going to a place such as Colombia during the heat of political tensions between two countries, I don't know if that might be the smartest move. I'm not saying cancel your flights. I'm just saying be careful on the places that you choose to visit to right now, because you might start hearing more stories. And this is just hypothetically speaking. And, you hear about the passport bros going overseas to Medellin, and, people are getting drugged and kidnapped and this and that and the third. I mean, it's kind of like an unspoken thing in the travel community. We know, like, a lot of that stuff happens in Colombia. So it would not surprise me out of retaliation that people, they might feel some type of way when they see Americans. Not necessarily that they're going to get kidnapped, but you might deal with, some unpleasant experiences when you go to certain places just based off of who we have in office right now. And I don't think that we're wrong in the sense that bringing people back to their native country is a bad thing, but it's just the way that we're doing it. Or I'm not going to say we, because this shit don't got nothing to do with me. Okay, I think it's just the way that he's doing it is very spiteful. There's no order, because even during Biden's administration, which was 2020 to 2024, I just had looked up that there were 470 deportation flights during that time. So people were still getting deported even in the previous presidency, but is a certain order and a certain protocol that you have to follow. You just can't just show up in a military plane with people in chains and just be like, here, there's a certain type of procedure that you have to follow in order to do it. So that's all that the Colombian president was saying. Yes, I do agree. If somebody does come over here illegally, I don't see why it's a problem for their country to receive them back the same way that they came over here, because they would do it to us as well. I just had a friend, I kid you not, this was a month ago. He was taking a trip from LA to Colombia. I think he had a layover in Panama, and then from Panama, he ended up coming to Colombia. Okay, he was born in America, but his mom is Colombian, and she lives in Colombia. Well, at some point between LA and Colombia, he ended up losing his passport. He thinks he lost the passport somewhere between Panama and Colombia. Either like he lost it on the plane. He doesn't know what happened to it, but he thinks that somebody picked up his passport on the plane, and he told the flight attendant, he said, hey, like, I don't know where my passport is, but I know I had to have my passport to check in, to get on the plane, because they scan your passport. And so from that point to somewhere getting on the plane, he ended up losing it. And so they ended up continuing on with the flight. It's like, okay, well, we're just going to board everybody. We'll look for it later. And so once he gets to Colombia, they deplane everybody. He checks all the rows, could not find his passport. Long story short, he gets to immigration, and they say, well, hey, man, you're here in this country illegally, okay? Like, you don't have a passport, so we're going to have to deport you back to the United States. And he says, well, I'm actually Colombian. He says, my mom is Colombian, and he says through birthright. I forgot what he said. It was something about his mom is Colombian. He had people email over birth certificates and, like, other documents to prove that he was Colombian, and they did not care that his mom was Colombian. They were like, no, you are an American. You're going back to America. So essentially, that's what ended up happening. They deported him back to America. I don't know if he went straight to Panama first or if they took him from Colombia back to LA, but that was a situation where someone showed up to Colombia, did not have their passport. He was illegal, and they did send him back. He did try to go through the U.S. Embassy to see could they give him a temporary passport. They were like, nope, you need to have your actual passport. And so when he got back to LA, he actually had to get his passport expedited to him. And so then That way he can come back to Colombia. But I'm just saying all this to say is that just be very mindful when you are picking certain trips and just understanding the political climate, the political and social climate of what's going on in the world right now, because it might not be the best time to go to certain places just because, you know, we are creating a lot of enemies with a lot of countries right now. And I just want people to be careful, okay? But please, one thing, America, please do not piss off Dominican Republic, okay? You could piss off any other country, but please do not piss off the DR, okay? Because then I'm going to have to change this entire channel. Now I'm playing. But all right, that's all I got for this video, guys. Y'all stay safe out there. Tell me your thoughts down below. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.